Have you ever stood in front of a mirror or felt a certain tightness in your clothes and made a promise? A promise that this time will be different. This time, you'll follow the plan, you'll resist the cravings, you'll push through the fatigue. You start with a fire of determination. For a week, maybe two. But then, life happens. A stressful Tuesday, a social celebration, a wave of tiredness so profound that a bag of chips seems like the only solace. The fire sputters. Guilt whispers. And the old familiar story resumes. I just don't have the willpower. What if the problem was never you? What if it was the story itself? For decades, we've been sold a story of weight loss that revolves around deprivation, sheer force of will, and temporary effort. It's a story of climbing a steep, grueling mountain to reach a peak called goal weight, only to find ourselves perpetually slipping back down. But there is another narrative, quieter, gentler, and infinitely more powerful. It's the story told not by before and after photos, but by the subtle glow of vitality in someone's eyes. It's the story of the person who seems to move through life with energy, who enjoys food without obsession, who doesn't seem to be fighting their body, but listening to it. This isn't magic, it's science. It's the science of sustainable change. Welcome to Health Storytellers. Today, we are not offering you a diet. We are inviting you to rewrite your story. We will explore the 5 foundational habits backed by behavioral psychology and nutritional science that don't just help you lose weight. They help you find a way of living that sustains you, body and mind, for the long and beautiful journey ahead. This is the science of sustainable weight loss, 5 habits that actually work. The journey of 1,000 miles, as the proverb goes, begins with a single step. But before you can take that first tangible step towards sustainable change, you must first undertake a different kind of journey, one that occurs entirely within the landscape of your own mind. This is our starting point, the absolute cornerstone upon which every other habit will be built. We must begin by constructing a cognitive blueprint. For generations, the prevailing narrative around weight loss has been one of force, restriction, and external validation. We set goals based on societal ideals, on numbers we believe will unlock happiness, on deadlines imposed by events. We declare, I need to lose 20 pounds. This statement, while seemingly innocuous, contains within it the seeds of its own potential undoing. It frames the objective as external, finite, and binary. Success is defined solely by the achievement of that specific numerical outcome. Consequently, the entire process becomes a means to a punishing end. Every skipped dessert is an act of deprivation. Every workout is a grueling penance. The mind perceives this as a state of lack, a temporary hardship to be endured. Under such psychological conditions, the brain's ancient survival mechanisms begin to rebel. Willpower, as neuroscientists have demonstrated, is not an infinite reservoir, but a finite resource that depletes with use, much like a muscle that fatigues. When your cognitive blueprint is built on deprivation and force, you are drawing from a well that will inevitably run dry. The science of sustainable change offers a profoundly different architecture. It invites a paradigm shift from an externally focused, outcome-based goal to an internally driven, identity-based process. Consider the subtle but monumental rewiring of this statement. Instead of, I need to lose 20 pounds, the foundation becomes, I am becoming someone who treats my body with respect and nourishes it with intention. The first is a destination. The second is a direction. The first is about having less. The second is about becoming more. This shift is far more than semantic. It is neurological. It leverages the brain's remarkable capacity for neuroplasticity, the lifelong ability to form and reorganize synaptic connections in response to learning and experience. When you repeatedly engage in behaviors that align with a new, chosen identity, you are not just performing tasks. You are forging and strengthening new neural pathways. You are literally rewiring your brain to make these behaviors more automatic, more default. Each time you choose a vegetable-rich meal while thinking, this is what a person who values their health does, you are casting a vote for your new identity. You are not relying on a fast-depleting store of willpower. You are gradually transforming your self-concept so that the healthy choice becomes the authentic choice, the choice that simply feels like you. Central to solidifying this new blueprint is the practice of self-compassion. This is a concept rigorously validated by the research of psychologists like Dr. Kristen Neff, and it stands in stark contrast to the self-criticism that so often pervades weight loss efforts. Self-criticism activates the body's sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response. It triggers the release of cortisol, a stress hormone that not only promotes fat storage, particularly in the abdominal region, but also heightens emotional reactivity and drives cravings for high-calorie comfort foods. It creates a vicious cycle of stress, poor choices, guilt, and more stress. Self-compassion, on the other hand, engages the brain's caregiving and self-soothing systems. It involves three core components: treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a good friend in a similar situation, recognizing that struggle and imperfection are part of the shared human experience, and holding your painful thoughts and feelings in mindful awareness without over-identifying with them. When you respond to a setback with self-compassion, say overindulging at a party, you might say, "This is disappointing, and it's okay to feel that way. Everyone has moments like this. What can I learn from it, and how can I care for myself moving forward?" This approach deactivates the threat response, lowers cortisol, and creates a psychological state of safety and connectedness. From this place of safety, you are far more capable of making clear, values-based decisions rather than fear-based reactions. Self-compassion provides the emotional resilience necessary for long-term change. To translate this new identity and self-compassion into daily action, we employ a highly effective strategy from behavioral psychology known as implementation intentions. The gap between a general goal and actual behavior is often filled by hesitation, ambiguity, and decision fatigue. Implementation intentions bridge this gap by creating a pre-decided if-then plan. They transform a vague intention like, "I will eat better," into a specific, context-dependent script. If it is 3 p.m. and I feel an energy slump at my desk, then I will first drink a full glass of water and eat the apple I packed. Or, if I am feeling stressed after work and am tempted to mindlessly snack, then I will put on my walking shoes and spend 10 minutes outside first. These plans are powerful because they offload the decision from your overwhelmed conscious mind in a moment of temptation or fatigue and delegate it to a pre-programmed automatic response. The cognitive load is lifted. When the if condition occurs, the then behavior has a significantly higher probability of being executed. Research consistently shows that people who use implementation intentions are more likely to follow through on their goals, from exercising more to eating more fruits and vegetables. Therefore, the work of part 1 is this foundational inner work. It is the quiet, deliberate process of drafting a new cognitive blueprint. You are not simply starting a diet. You are initiating a process of identity migration. You are moving from someone who feels at odds with their body to someone who is learning to care for it with intelligence and kindness. You are arming yourself with the tools of self-compassion to navigate inevitable stumbles without collapsing the entire structure. You are installing cognitive scripts in the form of implementation intentions to guide your choices effortlessly. This mental architecture, this blueprint, is what makes the subsequent physical habits not a burdensome regime, but a natural expression of who you are becoming. Without this foundation, any external change is built on sand, vulnerable to the first storm of stress, schedule disruption, or emotional turbulence. With it, you build upon solid rock. Armed with a cognitive blueprint that redefines success from a number on a scale to a state of being, we now turn our attention to the most tangible daily expression of this new identity: the act of nourishment. Here, we enter a domain saturated with noise, a cacophony of fad diets, conflicting expert opinions, and moralistic language that labels foods as good or clean versus bad or cheat. To build sustainably, we must first clear this noise and return to foundational principles grounded not in culture, but in human physiology. This is the plate principle, a framework for constructing meals that promote satiety, stability, and satisfaction, liberating you from the neurosis of constant calculation. The core philosophy of this principle is a deliberate shift from micromanagement to macrostructure. Instead of fixating on the precise calorie count of every morsel, a practice that research shows can increase stress and obsession, we focus on the overall composition of your plate. This approach aligns with the body's innate wisdom and complex hormonal signaling systems. The goal is to eat in a way that naturally regulates hunger and energy, making conscious restriction increasingly unnecessary. The structural guideline is elegantly simple. Visualize your plate divided into 3 distinct, purposeful sections. First, allocate half of your plate to non-starchy vegetables and, to a lesser extent, whole fruits. This is not the token side salad of old dieting lore. It is the voluminous, colorful foundation of the meal. Think leafy greens like spinach and kale, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, and a rainbow of bell peppers, zucchini, carrots, and tomatoes. The rationale is multidimensional. These foods are characterized by high volume and low energy density. They contain significant water and fiber, which physically fill the stomach, stimulating stretch receptors that send powerful signals of fullness to the brain via the vagus nerve. Furthermore, the fiber itself, particularly soluble fiber, slows gastric emptying and the absorption of nutrients, leading to a more gradual and sustained release of energy. Beyond bulk and fiber, this half plate is your primary source of essential micronutrients: vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. These compounds are the cofactors for every metabolic process in your body. They support energy production, immune function, cellular repair, and the very enzymatic pathways that regulate weight. By prioritizing this category, you ensure your body has the necessary tools to operate efficiently, while naturally creating a calorie-moderate environment through sheer volume and satisfaction. Next, dedicate 1/4 of your plate to a high-quality source of protein. This includes options like chicken, fish, eggs, lean cuts of red meat, tofu, tempeh, lentils, and beans. Protein's role in sustainable weight management is paramount, acting on several physiological levels. It has the highest thermic effect of food, TF, meaning your body expends more energy, about 20 to 30% of the calories consumed, simply to digest, absorb, and process it, compared to 5 to 10% for carbohydrates and 0 to 3% for fats. More significantly, protein exerts a profound influence on satiety hormones. It robustly increases the release of peptide YY, PYY, and glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, hormones that communicate fullness to the brain and slow digestive motility. Concurrently, it helps suppress ghrelin, the primary hormone that stimulates hunger. This hormonal profile translates to a prolonged feeling of satisfaction after a meal, reducing the likelihood of intrusive snacking. Finally, adequate protein intake is the critical dietary determinant for the preservation and growth of lean muscle mass. During any period of calorie reduction, the body can break down muscle tissue for energy. Since muscle is metabolically active tissue, burning calories even at rest, preserving it is essential for maintaining a healthy metabolic rate. Protein provides the amino acids necessary to repair and maintain this metabolically precious tissue. The final 1/4 of the plate is reserved for intelligent carbohydrate sources. This includes whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, and oats, starchy vegetables such as sweet potatoes, squash, and corn, and legumes, which also contribute protein. The narrative that carbohydrates are inherently fattening is a damaging oversimplification. Carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of energy, particularly for the brain and high-intensity muscle function. The critical distinction lies in the quality and fiber content. Refined carbohydrates, white bread, pastries, sugary cereals are stripped of fiber and cause rapid spikes in blood glucose and insulin, followed by sharp crashes that trigger hunger and fatigue. In contrast, the complex, fiber-rich carbohydrates recommended here are digested slowly. They provide a steady, sustained release of glucose into the bloodstream, supporting stable energy levels, cognitive function, and balanced insulin response. This stability is crucial for preventing the cycles of craving and overconsumption driven by blood sugar volatility. This plate principle works synergistically. The fiber from the vegetables and complex carbs, combined with the protein and fats, creates a powerful trifecta for satiety and metabolic harmony. However, the structure of the meal is only one component. The manner of eating is equally vital, leading us to the essential practice of mindful eating. Mindful eating is the application of mindfulness, non-judgmental, present moment awareness to the act of consumption. In our modern environment, eating is often a distracted, secondary activity, done while working, driving, or watching screens. This disconnection disrupts the brain-gut axis. When you eat quickly and distractedly, you bypass the cephalic phase of digestion, where the sight and smell of food trigger preparatory enzymatic secretions. More importantly, you fail to notice your body's subtle satiety signals, which take approximately 20 minutes to travel from stomach to brain. The result is mechanical overeating. The practice of mindful eating counteracts this. It begins by creating a deliberate pause before eating, even if just for a breath, to acknowledge the meal. It involves engaging all the senses, appreciating colors and aromas, noting textures and flavors. It means chewing thoroughly, putting utensils down between bites, and checking in periodically with your internal sense of hunger and fullness. This is not about creating rigid rules, but about fostering a connected, respectful relationship with food. Studies have shown that mindful eating practices can reduce binge eating, decrease emotional eating, and lead to more enjoyable and satisfying meals with less food consumed. It transforms eating from a task of fuel loading into an experience of nourishment. Therefore, the second habit is the mastery of the plate principle and the art of mindful eating. This is not a temporary diet, but a lifelong skill of meal construction and conscious consumption. It moves you from a paradigm of restriction, I can't have that, to one of positive inclusion. How can I build a satisfying, nourishing plate? It replaces anxiety with knowledge and guilt with gratitude. By learning to feed yourself in this structured, attentive way, you make peace with food. It ceases to be an adversary or a source of emotional solace and reclaims its fundamental role to sustain, energize, and delight the vessel that carries you through life. Our narrative now shifts from the quiet focus of the plate to the dynamic expression of the body in motion. If our relationship with food has been clouded by morality, our relationship with exercise has often been framed by punishment and transaction. We speak of working off a meal, burning calories, or paying for indulgence through exertion. This transactional view transforms movement from a potential sole source of joy into a form of metabolic penance, a debt that must be settled. To build a sustainable practice, we must dismantle this paradigm and construct a new narrative where movement is reframed not as a cost, but as a profound investment, a direct experiential gift you give to your body and mind. The cornerstone of this new narrative is a fundamental reorientation of primary intent. The most sustainable and psychologically resilient approach to physical activity is one where the principal goal is not weight loss, but the enhancement of vitality. Vitality encompasses physical energy, mental clarity, emotional resilience, and functional capability. When movement is pursued for the immediate and tangible rewards of a brighter mood, a calmer nervous system, a stronger body, and deeper sleep, it becomes intrinsically rewarding. The calorie expenditure, while a beneficial side effect, is no longer the sole, often disappointing metric of success. This shift is critical because it anchors the habit in positive feedback loops you can feel daily, rather than in a distant and variable outcome you can only see on a scale. To integrate this seamlessly into life, we must first broaden our definition of exercise beyond structured gym sessions. This brings us to the most powerful, yet most frequently overlooked lever in daily energy expenditure: non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT. NEAT encompasses all the energy expended for everything we do that is not sleeping, eating, or sports-like exercise. It includes walking, typing, gardening, pacing, cooking, and even fidgeting. For the average individual, NEAT can account for 15% to 30% of total daily calorie expenditure. But this variability is vast and can be a key differentiator in long-term weight management. Individuals with naturally high NEAT often subconsciously incorporate more movement throughout their day. The strategic opportunity lies in consciously cultivating your NEAT. This is not about adding hour-long workouts, but about weaving a mosaic of movement into the existing fabric of your day. It is the aggregation of small, consistent actions: taking the stairs instead of the elevator, conducting a walking meeting, parking at the far end of the lot, standing or performing gentle stretches while on a phone call, doing a few minutes of tidying or light yard work. The cumulative metabolic impact of this all-day, low-grade activity is substantial. Furthermore, it counters the deleterious effects of prolonged sitting, which research has independently linked to impaired metabolic health, regardless of one's exercise routine. By focusing on NEAT, You transform your entire day into an opportunity for gentle metabolic engagement, fostering a body that is regularly in motion rather than alternating between sedentary states and intense, discrete bouts of exercise. When we do engage in purposeful, structured exercise, the emphasis should be on functional strength training. The objective here is not necessarily bodybuilding or maximal lifts, but rather building and maintaining metabolically active lean muscle mass and enhancing the body's capacity for real-world tasks. Muscle tissue is energetically demanding. At rest, it consumes more calories per pound than fat tissue. Therefore, preserving or increasing muscle mass helps maintain a higher resting metabolic rate, a crucial factor in long-term weight stability. Beyond metabolism, strength training builds resilience. It strengthens bones, tendons, and ligaments, improves posture and balance, and mitigates the risk of injury. It empowers you to navigate daily life with ease, carrying groceries, lifting children, moving furniture, fostering a sense of competence and confidence. This functional approach makes strength training relevant and sustainable, connected to life beyond the gym walls. Equally important is acknowledging and harnessing the profound psychoneurological benefits of cardiovascular or aerobic movement. Activities such as brisk walking, cycling, swimming, or dancing are potent modulators of brain chemistry. They stimulate the release of endorphins and endocannabinoids, neurochemicals associated with reduced perception of pain and elevated mood, often termed the runner's high. Regular aerobic exercise is a first-line intervention for mild to moderate depression and anxiety, comparable in efficacy to medication for some individuals. It reduces baseline levels of cortisol and adrenaline, the body's primary stress hormones. It also enhances cognitive function, including memory and executive control, by promoting blood flow and stimulating neurogenesis in the hippocampus. When you move for mental clarity, for stress relief, or for the simple meditative rhythm of a walk, the activity becomes self-reinforcing. You begin to crave movement, not to burn your dinner, but to clear your mind and lift your spirit. This psychological payoff ensures consistency far more effectively than any guilt-driven calorie-burning goal. Therefore, the third habit is the conscious creation of your movement mosaic. This involves a dual strategy. First, systematically increasing non-exercise activity thermogenesis by looking for every possible opportunity to inject gentle movement into your daily routines. And second, engaging in structured exercise with the primary intentions of building functional strength, enhancing cardiovascular health, and elevating mental well-being. This approach decouples movement from punishment and recouples it with pleasure, capability, and vitality. It transforms exercise from a scheduled chore into an integrated expression of self-care. You no longer move because you feel you have to. You move because you have learned, through experience, how much better you feel in body, mind, and spirit when you do. In this framework, consistency emerges naturally from positive reinforcement, paving the way for a lifelong nurturing relationship with the miraculous capacity of your body to move. We have now constructed a robust framework for conscious action, a mind oriented toward growth, a plate built for satiety, and a body engaged in purposeful movement. Yet, even the most elegant architecture requires a stable foundation upon which to stand. For the human metabolism, that foundation is composed not of dramatic interventions, but of two fundamental, often neglected physiological processes: hydration and sleep. These are the silent, non-negotiable regulators of your entire system. They operate in the background, influencing every hormone, every cognitive decision, and every cellular function. To overlook them is to attempt to build a palace on shifting sand. Master them, and you provide the essential stability that allows all other habits to flourish. Hydration, the essential solvent of life. Water is the most abundant molecule in the human body, and its role transcends simple thirst quenching. It is the primary solvent for biochemical reactions, the medium for nutrient transport, the regulator of body temperature through sweating, and the essential component of cellular structure. Even mild dehydration, a fluid deficit of just 1 to 2% of body weight, can precipitate a measurable decline in both physical and cognitive performance. Muscular endurance decreases, motivation and perceived effort increase, and cognitive functions such as concentration, alertness, and short-term memory become impaired. In the context of weight management, dehydration poses two specific challenges. First, the brain's hypothalamic regions responsible for regulating thirst and hunger are in close proximity and can generate ambiguous signals. The sensations of mild thirst are often misinterpreted by the brain as sensations of hunger. This can lead to unnecessary caloric intake when what the body truly requires is simple fluid replenishment. The habitual act of drinking a full glass of water upon experiencing a hunger pang can, in many instances, resolve the sensation entirely, providing a powerful tool for distinguishing true physiological hunger from mere thirst or habit. Second, water is integral to the metabolic process of lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat for energy. Adequate hydration is necessary for the kidneys to function optimally in filtering waste products from the blood. When dehydrated, the kidney's efficiency declines, placing a greater filtration burden on the liver. One of the liver's many roles is to metabolize stored fat for energy. If the liver is partially occupied with the kidney's work, its capacity for fat metabolism can be reduced. Thus, chronic low-grade dehydration may subtly slow metabolic efficiency. The practice, therefore, is to move from reactive to proactive hydration. Rather than drinking only when thirst strikes, a signal that dehydration has already begun, cultivate the habit of consistent, distributed intake throughout the day. Begin your morning with a glass of water to rehydrate after the nightly fast. Keep water accessible and visible. While individual needs vary based on size, activity, and climate, a general guideline is to aim for sufficient intake such that your urine is pale yellow in color. This simple habit ensures your metabolic machinery is operating in an optimally fluid environment. Sleep, the metabolic reset. If hydration is the essential solvent, sleep is the essential maintenance shift. In our productivity-centric culture, sleep is frequently sacrificed, viewed as unproductive downtime or a flexible commodity. This view is a profound metabolic error. Sleep is an intensely active period of physiological restoration and regulation, particularly for the endocrine system that governs hunger, satiety, and stress. The impact of sleep deprivation on the hormones that regulate appetite is direct and significant. Research has consistently demonstrated that even a single night of short sleep, 4 to 6 hours, alters the secretion of two key hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin, secreted primarily by the stomach, stimulates appetite. Leptin, released by adipose fat tissue, signals satiety to the brain. When sleep is restricted, ghrelin levels rise, sending stronger eat signals, while leptin levels fall, dampening the full signals. This hormonal profile creates a state of perceived biological starvation, driving an increased appetite, particularly for energy-dense, high-carbohydrate, and sugary foods. The craving is not a failure of willpower, it is a physiological directive. Furthermore, sleep deprivation induces a state of metabolic stress. It reduces insulin sensitivity, meaning the body's cells become less responsive to insulin's signal to take up glucose from the bloodstream. The pancreas must then secrete more insulin to achieve the same effect, leading to elevated insulin levels. Chronically high insulin promotes fat storage and inhibits fat breakdown. Concurrently, sleep loss activates the sympathetic nervous system and increases the secretion of cortisol, a glucocorticoid hormone released in response to stress. Elevated cortisol further encourages the accumulation of visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat linked to higher risks of metabolic disease, and can drive cravings for comfort foods. Beyond appetite and stress hormones, sleep is critical for cognitive restoration and emotional regulation. The prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive functions such as impulse control, decision-making, and willpower, is particularly vulnerable to sleep loss. When you are sleep deprived, your capacity to make deliberate, values-aligned choices, like selecting a nutritious meal or resisting a highly palatable snack, is neurologically compromised. You are more likely to operate on autopilot, driven by primal brain systems seeking quick energy and reward. Therefore, prioritizing sleep is not an indulgence. It is a metabolic imperative. The goal is 7 to 9 hours of quality, uninterrupted sleep for most adults. Quality involves not just duration, but also depth and consistency. This requires cultivating sleep hygiene, creating a cool, dark, and quiet sleep environment, establishing a consistent pre-sleep routine to signal the body to wind down, minimizing exposure to blue light from screens in the hour before bed, and avoiding stimulants like caffeine and large meals too close to bedtime. Together, hydration and sleep form the indispensable foundation of metabolic health. They are the silent partners in your journey, modulating hormones, sharpening cognition, and optimizing physiological function. When you are well hydrated and well rested, the other habits, mindful eating, intentional movement, and resilient mindset, become exponentially easier to execute. You are not fighting against your own biology. You have instead aligned your lifestyle to support its most basic and powerful regulatory systems, creating a stable platform from which sustainable change can genuinely spring. We arrive now at the culmination of our framework, not with a sixth habit, but with the essential philosophy that binds the previous five into a sustainable, lifelong practice. This final section addresses the inevitable reality of the human experience: variability. Life is not a controlled laboratory experiment. It is a dynamic, unpredictable narrative filled with celebrations, stressors, travel, fatigue, and joy. The pursuit of perfect, unbroken adherence to any set of habits is not only impossible but counterproductive. It sets a standard that guarantees feelings of failure and eventual abandonment. Therefore, the true art of sustainable change lies not in perfection, but in mastering the cycle of consistency. The resilient, self-compassionate process of returning to your chosen path, time and again, with wisdom and grace. The cornerstone of this philosophy is the strategic application of the 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle. Applied to sustainable habits, it suggests aiming to make choices aligned with your health and vitality approximately 80% of the time. The remaining 20% is consciously allocated for flexibility, spontaneity, and life's inherent variability. This is not a cheat day framed as rebellion, but a planned and accepted margin for living fully. It encompasses the slice of birthday cake enjoyed mindfully at a celebration, the rich meal savored on vacation, the days when work demands preclude a home-cooked meal, or the times when exhaustion dictates a simple dinner. By institutionalizing this flexibility, you remove the forbidden fruit allure of off-limit foods and activities. You eliminate the psychological backlash of restrictive dieting, where deprivation builds until it erupts into binge-like behavior. The 80-20 framework creates sustainability by making the plan adaptable to real life, thereby preventing the sense of deprivation that ultimately derails rigid protocols. To build the consistency that defines the 80%, we employ a powerful behavioral strategy known as habit stacking, a concept popularized by researcher James Clear. The cognitive load of remembering and initiating a new behavior is one of the greatest barriers to consistency. Habit stacking reduces this load by anchoring a new, desired habit to an existing, automatic one. The formula is simple. After before, current habit, I will new habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will drink 1 full glass of water. After I clear my lunch plate, I will immediately take a 10-minute walk. Before I begin my evening routine, I will prepare my lunch for the next day. By piggybacking on neural pathways already etched into your daily life, the new behavior requires less conscious effort and willpower. Over time, the stack becomes its own automatic sequence, weaving the healthy habit seamlessly into the fabric of your day. This method allows for the gradual, steady construction of your new lifestyle without overwhelming your cognitive resources. Despite the best frameworks and strategies, setbacks are an inevitable and normative part of any meaningful journey. A setback might be a week of poor food choices during a stressful period, a vacation where exercise routines lapse, or a series of late nights that disrupt sleep. The critical determinant of long-term success is not the absence of these events, but your response to them. The old narrative often interprets a setback as catastrophic proof of inadequacy, triggering the "what the hell" effect. The decision to abandon all efforts entirely because perfection has been broken. The new narrative, rooted in the cognitive blueprint from Part 1, employs compassionate curiosity. Here, a setback is reframed not as a failure, but as data. It is an opportunity for learning, not for self-condemnation. When you find yourself off course, the practice is to engage in a gentle, non-judgmental inquiry. Ask yourself, what were the triggering circumstances? Was it emotional stress, social pressure, lack of planning, or physical fatigue? What can this experience teach me about my vulnerabilities and my needs? How might I adjust my environment or my plans to support myself better in a similar future situation? This analytical, kind approach prevents the emotional spiral of guilt and shame, which are paralyzing emotions. Instead, it fosters proactive problem solving and resilience. A lapse becomes a single point of data in a long-term trend line, not the definitive end of the story. The simple, powerful act of returning to your habits at the very next meal or the very next day, without drama or self-punishment, is the most profound practice of self-trust you can cultivate. Therefore, the fifth and final element is this overarching philosophy: embrace the cycle of consistency. This means releasing the exhausting pursuit of perfection and adopting the liberating pursuit of progress. It involves using the 80-20 principle to build intelligent flexibility, employing habit stacking to engineer consistency, and meeting inevitable setbacks with compassionate curiosity. Your journey is not a linear ascent, but a spiral, where you may circle back to similar challenges, but at a higher level of understanding and skill each time. This cycle: plan, act, occasionally stumble, learn, recalibrate, and continue, is the heartbeat of lasting change. It transforms the pursuit of health from a finite pass-fail test into a compassionate, lifelong practice of self-care. By mastering this cycle, you ensure that the 5 foundational habits become not a temporary program you follow, but a permanent, adaptable, and forgiving way of living that evolves gracefully with you through all the seasons of your life. These habits do not operate in isolation. They are a symphony. Good sleep makes healthy choices easier. Proper hydration supports your energy for movement. Mindful eating strengthens your cognitive blueprint. Each one reinforces the other, creating a virtuous cycle of well-being. This is not about shrinking your body. It is about expanding your life. It is about having the energy to play with your children or grandchildren. It's about the confidence that comes from feeling strong in your own skin. It's about the mental clarity to pursue your passions. It's about writing a story where you are not at war with your body, but in a loving, respectful partnership with it. You already have everything you need to begin. Start with 1 glass of water. Start with 1 mindful meal. Start with a 10-minute walk. Start by speaking to yourself with 1 kind sentence. Your story of health is waiting to be told, 1 small, consistent chapter at a time. Thank you for listening. If this narrative resonated with you, if you felt a spark of recognition or hope, then you are who we are here for. At Health Storytellers, we believe that the most powerful health transformations begin with a change in perspective, with a new story. Help us write more stories. If you found value here, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button to let us know. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And in the comments below, tell us, which of these 5 habits feels most like your starting point? Your story inspires ours. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. And remember, the goal is not a number. The goal is a life lived with vitality, 1 healthy habit at a time.